It's Klayton, aka Celldweller, and as I'm standing in front of the beautiful OB-6 keyboard, which is a collaboration between Dave Smith and Tom Oberheim, I had a thought. You know, it's pretty common to see people hang posters of girls in bikinis taking naps on Corvettes, clearly because they're tired. But guys like me and probably people like you are more inclined to hang posters of synth legends on our walls. So synth nerds rejoiced worldwide when we found out that two synth pioneers, Dave Smith and Tom Oberheim, were getting together to make this keyboard, the OB-6. And the guts of the synth are combined elements of both of their technologies, all put into one box, and it's a masterpiece. I own two sequential circuits, Prophet 600s, and I've used them on some of my older albums, back when soft synths weren't even remotely close to sounding anything like a hardware synth. On my song Chasm, which was on the Disengage album of my project Circle of Dust over 20 years ago, I used the Prophet 600 on a main lead throughout the whole song. So going into the OB-6, knowing the history of Dave Smith and Tom Oberheim and their great technologies and a lot of the protocols they actually created that are still used in synthesizers today, I couldn't wait to get my hands on this keyboard. So for starters, when I get a new piece of gear, a test I like to run is how much do I actually need to refer to the manual before I actually know how to use it. And this was amazing in the sense that I literally just plopped it down on the keyboard stand and knew how to operate the entire keyboard without looking at a single piece of literature, because there's almost no menu diving at all. Everything you want to do is laid out cleanly, neatly, and clearly right on the front panel, and that was amazing to be able to just dive in, start twisting knobs, and knowing what they're going to do. So starting left to right, I'll give you a quick overview of how this is laid out. We've got an aftertouch amount on the left here, and right now this patch, it's assigned to the filter frequency. An aftertouch is based on the pressure you put on the keys. The harder you press on them, the more aftertouch is applied to your signal. This is routed to the filter frequency. I have a little bit of a positive amount here, which means it will open the filter. If I set a negative amount, it will close the filter the harder I press. So you can hear an example of that here. And then if I crank the amount up, you'll get a much more extreme version of that. And that's assignable to loudness, your LFO amount, VCO1, VCO2. There's all kinds of things you can do, which is great. Next, we have the Xmod modulation section here. You can use two sources, which are the filter envelope or VCO2, to control 6 parameters. So you can assign one of those two things or both to control these various parameters. There's a lot of flexibility here and tons of room for sound design. You've got an LFO that will synchronize to your master clock, and you've got various waveforms. For instance, you can assign the LFO to, let's say, your VCOs and give yourself a little bit of pitch modulation by turning up this initial amount. You have two different VCOs here in this VCO section with variable waveforms. So instead of just selecting preset waveforms, you can actually smoothly transition between waveforms and create completely new waveforms. You've got saws and squares and triangles, and you also have a mixer here which allows you to dial in VCO1, VCO2, mix the volumes of them together, and you have a sub-octave. When you dial that in, we'll add some low end. It will add a sub-octave oscillator to VCO1 and VCO2. You've got a filter section here which is selectable between low pass, notch, high pass, and you've also got a band pass button to be able to turn that on and off. And it sounds awesome, as you would expect. You've got ADSRs, your envelopes here for filter and for amplitude. You have a master clock here. You can dial in your own tempo, or you can sync to an external tempo as well. And you have divisors here, so you can divide that clock time, and that will also link up to your delay times in your digital effects section, among other things. An arpeggiator, which is always great. Hold down notes, and you've got randoms, ups, downs, octave ranges. You've got a sequencer, which is very easy to use and pretty awesome to be able to punch in some notes and then hit the play button and play back what you just programmed. Digital effects section, which has an array of reverbs, flangers, phasers, ring mod, and you can control amounts and rates and everything else. This thing has 500 presets in RAM, so you can basically overwrite them, and those same 500 are repeated. So you really have 1,000 presets, but those second 500 are in ROM, so you can overwrite them. But you never have to worry about erasing your first 500 presets because you've got a whole set of 500 more that are in ROM there for you whenever you want to use them. Because this thing is so simple to use and sounds so great, I've already incorporated this into my score for Killer Instinct Season 3 that I'm doing with Atlas Plug, and my score for the movie The Dunes. This thing has a very classic sound, which is great, but a lot of modern implementation, including USB. So you can transmit MIDI via USB as well as CC information. And I wanted to run a test to see how effective that was and how reliable. And so I'm working on my project Scandroid. I'm working on a new track. It's kind of like my 80s new wave kind of thing. And I kind of wanted to do some filter sweeps and other recording of some of the parameters across the OB-6 and see if it will record them and play them back. And now, as you'll see, I just recorded in all of that CC information using the interface of the OB-6, and when I hit play, it's going to play it right back and replicate everything I just did. So I don't have nearly enough time to fit into this one video all of the features that this thing has and all of the great things it can do. You should check it out for yourself. There's a lot of other videos that will give you sound examples and everything else. But this thing is beautiful. It's modern and vintage at the same time. And you've got two synth legends, synth pioneers who have built this thing. Need I say more? So the best thing for you to do is head over to vintageking.com. They'll get one to you. You will spend hours playing with this and you will lose all your friends. And it will be completely worth it. Thanks for sticking with me all the way through this episode of Celldweller Production. If you want to see more, because there's a lot more coming, subscribe to my channel or save this playlist. And until next time, this is Klayton, aka Celldweller, signing off.